KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DiPrima. The show is called First Things First, and my very first thing on every single day, giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from God, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders. And let's go. Literally, let's go. Okay, so the way we do this show on a Thursday, which I believe today is one of those, it is. It's the 30th of January, to be exact. Okay, so hour one, we go local, what's happening on the left coast. Hour two, we do national, international, and beyond. And in the third hour, we do a deep dive, hot topic, person of interest. Today, Mama Boo, activist here in Southern California, is in the building, and she has a new book about how to nurture young women and girls, something we talked about in a rather lively manner last time. Well, she's written a book about it. And that is going to be very important information in the era that we currently find ourselves. Phone lines are always open, 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. And right now it's the first half of this hour. It's me, you, and the microphone, telephone, keyboard fingers. So tap in. We're at KBLA 1580 on every single platform. And we are at DiPrima Radio if you're just looking for me. DiPrima and then radio. And I am everywhere. Everywhere. Except on Fanbase, my handle is Dominique DiPrima. So there you have it. I have a question for you this morning, like I do many mornings. In light of what's happening in Washington, D.C., particularly around this idea that Donald Trump is floating of ending FEMA, right? And letting the states handle their own natural disasters. And, of course, the other threats that he's made, even if he doesn't end FEMA, he has threatened to withhold fire aid to California unless we sign off on him eliminating the debt ceiling so he could spend as much money as he wants on party favors for the rich in the so-called tax cuts. And there were a few other threats. Let the water come down, even though the water was never up. Now, it seemed like he backed off that when he was in the Palisades, but this guy kind of blows with the wind. So when he gets back into the Republican echo chamber in Washington or gets back to his programmers at Project 2025, he may go renege on what he said. He said, I got you. We're going to take care of this. He may renege and go back to, no, you have to, whatever it is, revoke the 14th Amendment. Should California secede from the Union? Should we be our own nation? We would be the fourth largest economy in the world. Should we bounce? It's not the first time this has been discussed. California is very wealthy. It's not just because we have rich people. It's because the land itself is very fertile, and we actually grow a huge percentage. I don't have the numbers right off the top of my fingers, but a huge percentage of the nation's food comes out of here. Technology, obviously entertainment. So during the first term, there was conversation about that. I kind of felt like we could have just built a wall to keep people out. And of course, Trump has talked about buying Greenland, trying to annex Canada as the 51st state, not Puerto Rico, where they're already citizens and already have certain rights, not give D.C. statehood, even though they are part of the Union. No, because that would be at disadvantage for Republicans. He wants to annex Canada and Greenland and buy Greenland. And there was one Canadian minister who said, well, we'd like to annex California. If California wants to come up here and be one of these provinces, maybe y'all can do that. But what I'm talking about now is neither of those things. What I'm talking about now is California having a declaration of independence of sorts. And we'll have someone here in the bottom of the hour to talk about that. And this is actually a serious drive that's happening right now. It's not just people like me who speculate about it. There are folks seriously looking at what it would take and moving forward with a plan. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah, there's a lot of other things going on. And of course, you're welcome to bring those into the conversation as well at 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. But to me, we're getting to the point, and it might sound funny, but I think we have to consider all options. Even if it was not that we actually seceded from the Union, some think that would start a civil war. I question whether our civil war ever truly ended. At least there has been a civil Cold War, right? Where the so-called winners, i.e. the North and black people, have been squeezed out of every aspect of elbowed out of every aspect of our victory that we should have had, the Reconstruction, the 40 acres, the protection by government troops, et cetera, that was promised and not delivered, the debt that is owed to us. That's why I'm so adamant about reparations, is because we never really finished the business of the Civil War in this country. And the fact that we can have things named after traitors, Civil War Confederates, and the fact that now Pete Hegseth, our new Secretary of Defense, feels that we should restore those names of Confederate traitors who were taken down during 2020 when we were protesting in these streets, and when many corporations made pledges that they didn't live up to about investing in creating equity and justice in this country, repairing harms. Now they're backing off of it. Much of that DEI stuff, even though some people argue, well, it benefits white women and others more than us. A lot of people, black people, make no mistake, a lot of black people benefit from DEI. And if it's benefiting women and other people of color, that's not a bad thing. But in any case, part of that investment came out of the protest of 2020. So they're backing off of that. They've reneged on, they were billions of dollars. Literally, I'm not making this up. Look at Black Enterprise, Google it. Billions of dollars, they tracked it, was pledged by these big corporations who are now not only reneging on their promises to donate to organizations that fight anti-blackness, they're removing their own programs to help you get in there, get a job, which benefit them. Because institutions and companies that are more diverse make more money, produce more successful students. That's how powerful racism, whites, and this supposed supremacy of white people theory is, right? So in that context, you talk about a state like California, which has this huge wealth, and now we are, I jokingly say, the sugar daddy, but we are giving affirmative action or blue state equity and inclusion to all of these MAGA states that are broke, that have no money. We are the welfare state. They are, in many cases, mooching off of us, sleeping on California's couch, while demonizing us and saying they want to hold us hostage to some radical political agenda before we can get the aid that we paid into the federal coffers to fix our wildfires. A case could be made. A case could be made that it's time to bounce. What do y'all think? 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. It's amazing to me how politicians in Washington demonize California and then come here with their hand out looking for donations so that they can be viable on the national stage. It's amazing to me how they demonize California, and yet they're more than happy to take our money to balance their budgets and pay for their roads to be fixed, their disasters to be repaired. And look, if we're going to be an all-in democracy, one person, one vote, and get rid of some of these civil rights era mechanisms that were put in place to keep our true power, our true numbers from registering in national elections, then I'm fine with staying in the Union. Actually, for all of its problems, I love my country. I really, really do. But am I willing to be pimped by a bunch of red states so that they can turn their back on us in our time of need? Not so much. So we'll hear what the realistic possibilities of that are and what the upside and downsides of that are. And of course, right now is, as usual, the perfect time to call me, 800-920-1580, the Republic of Califia. Or is it Califia? I think it's Califia, the mythical Black Queen that this state was named after. I wouldn't mind living in a land named after a Black Queen, the Republic of Califia. But then again, would you like to be on a landmass surrounded and not be part of this nation? Certainly I can see pros and cons. We'll look at that and more when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
They can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary.
On Saturday, February 22nd, you are invited to A Night with the Panthers, a special fundraiser dedicated to supporting Black Panther veterans who now require assistance with essential needs such as medicine, food, and housing. These Black Panther veterans championed human rights, fed the hungry, educated the community, and stood as powerful symbols of resistance and resilience. Despite their incredible sacrifices, loving and serving the people did not come with retirement plans or financial security. So, now it's our time to honor their legacy and ensure that they are cared for with the dignity they deserve. You can help by attending and supporting A Night with the Panthers, Saturday, February 22nd, 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Project 43 Team Post Center, 6841 Crenshaw Boulevard, Los Angeles. For more information, contact Black Panther Party Breakfast at gmail.com or call 707-554-2784. That's Black Panther Party Breakfast at gmail.com or call 707-554-2784. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out.
Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out.
Oh, Downy in the rinse straight.
Every now and then I rinse it out. One wash and it delivers. One wash, it smells so clean. Downy Rinse and Refresh, it's a dream.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Fights odor in just one wash. Guaranteed.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's.
The Parkinson's Foundation knows that the disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them.
If you have questions, the Parkinson's Foundation has answers.
We can help you understand the disease
and give you tips for living a better life.
Find your answers at parkinson.org or call 1-800-473-4636. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds, every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, bro.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, what y'all think? Feeling really blessed that these fires, for the moment, seem to be almost completely under control. Palisades now at 96% containment. Eaton Fire now at 99%. And the Hughes fire out by Castaic at 98% containment, which is great. Of course, it doesn't mean it's over. And even that border fire, the border fire is 100% contained. Of course, there's still smoke, smoldering, toxic mess, sludge, and a lot of rebuilding to do. And I'm happy to see that there are so many efforts to raise money. Again, I'm going to repeat what Brandon Lamar said on the show. And congrats to him, by the way. He's now officially the president of the Pasadena branch of the NAACP at his little age. But what he was talking about is all these fake GoFundMes, right? So if you want to make sure that the money that you are donating will go to actual families who lost their homes, there's a number of places that have verified families, verified GoFundMes. You can go to LA Legal Aid Network on Instagram. You can go to Walk Good LA on Instagram, Black Lives Matter LA. And we even have one list on ours, KBLA Talk 1580. And while you're there, please follow, like, subscribe. We appreciate you. And believe it or not, it does make a difference. It is one way that we are able to show that you're with us, and that gives us the ability to keep going, despite the way many things are stacked against us. Gregory Calloway says in the chat, how do you know when you're praying for your enemies? I pray for my enemies all the time. And my friends. I pray that they get enlightened, and then they wouldn't have to be my enemies anymore. I pray that their eyes would open to the truth. In any case, all of us need prayer and elevation at this point. It is a bit overwhelming. We talked about that on yesterday. And we have to really support folks. This Altadena and Palisades is going to be a long, long rebuilding process. Saw an excellent article comparing it to the big earthquake in San Francisco of 1906. This was in the LA Times. And they made the interesting point, that because San Francisco during that time had to give all of its energy to rebuilding the city, which was almost entirely destroyed, LA was able to pull ahead of San Francisco as an international city. Because if you think back to 1906, LA wasn't all that it is now. And apparently we seized the moment. And I know there are a number of progressives that don't agree with me, but I feel like we should keep the Super Bowl, keep the World Cup, keep the Olympics, and find ways to make sure that those giant events benefit the rebuilding of this city, this county. Now comes the investigative piece, when folks are trying to find out what happened. And we had seen a lot of conversation and speculation in the press and even by electeds that there was a small fire near heavily trafficked hiking trail in the area where the Palisades fire started, that had been put out and may have re-sparked and caused this big blaze. But there's no definitive answer. In Pasadena, residents around the area, many took pictures, some are just eyewitnesses, and they believe that it was Edison that started, the Edison equipment that started that terribly destructive blaze. And so, if so, they're going to be on the hook for a lot of money, just as PG&E was in Northern California, to the point where, they could end up entering bankruptcy. They're dodging, of course, pointing fingers at an encampment, but we know there will be thorough investigations. And it's not just local investigators. In the Palisades, you've got ATF, the Federal Bureau of Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, investigating in Palisades. And I know there's a lot of rumors, and one of the things I think we have the ability and the responsibility to do as a independently owned and operated media outlet is caution against jumping to conclusions. I've seen some theories on the internet talking about how LA officials secretly burned down LA for, some of them say, to get rid of black people, some of them say to make room for the Olympics. But that doesn't even make sense, and to me, it's people that don't know LA that are doing that, because how would burning down the Palisades help get us ready for the Olympics? Like, that doesn't make sense. Not only is it there are many wealthy, resourced people in the Palisades, there are also working class people, but now we've got a whole big problem that we have to clean up. And also, if you're not from LA, you don't realize that Pasadena, Altadena, and the Palisades are not right in the center of what you think of as LA. In fact, Pasadena, Altadena is technically not part of the city of LA. It's part of the county, but has its own mayor, its own council, city council. And so I hope that you'll take some of these internet theories with a side eye and a grain of salt. Because if you're an Angelino and you live here, let's intentionally burn down Altadena black community. I mean, I can see the allure of a theory like that, because we certainly have been attacked a lot. But as James Farr and others have pointed out on this show, had the wind slightly shifted, ever so slightly shifted, something with which we do not have control, the Rose Bowl and wealthy white Pasadena would have gone up in flames in a second, because that wind was so strong. And so I'm just hoping that we will utilize our common sense, especially as people who live here. Yes, Altadena was and will be, again, I'm claiming it and naming it, a thriving black community. Yes, it had the highest home ownership rate of black people in the entire nation, with 8 out of 10 owning their own homes. But would someone spark it to get ready for the Olympics? No. Now you're going to have more homeless people, or the potential to have more homeless people. How does that help us get ready for the Olympics and the Super Bowl? Well, you have a community of housed black people who are probably taking in those couch surfing cousins that remind me of our red state freeloaders. Not that they're freeloading, trying to get back on their feet, whatever. But my point is, that's just not a logical thing. It doesn't make any sense. If you know the dynamics, and that's why your relatives from out of town are calling you to see if your house burned, even though you live in Watts, right? Because they don't know. LA is very unusual. It's special. And if you know, you know. And if you don't know, you most definitely don't know. It doesn't mean that there can't be blame, it doesn't mean that there can't be suspicious activity or that there was none, or that some of these smaller blazes or even, the Palisades blaze weren't set on purpose. But I think some of these conspiracy theories about wiping out black wealth, I doubt it. Now the response, why didn't Altadena get warning? That's another question. But don't believe everything you hear on the internet, especially when it comes to these California wildfires. We're going to talk CalExit when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. More than 30 bodies have been pulled from the Potomac River after last night's collision between a passenger plane and a military helicopter near Washington, D.C. Officials do not expect to find any survivors, and the operation is changing from rescue to recovery. President Trump signed an executive order to prepare a 30,000 migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. The Departments of Defense and Homeland Security will handle the preparations. More questioning of President Trump's nominees continues today. Kash Patel will face senators for the FBI leadership role, Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Secretary of Health and Human Services. And Rihanna showed up to support A$AP Rocky at his ongoing assault trial in L.A. He faces 2 felony counts and could get up to 24 years if convicted. He pleaded not guilty and declined a plea deal. I'm Bree Wood on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
If you were self-employed or a 1099 contractor and missed work because you had COVID or cared for an immediate family member with COVID in 2021, you may qualify for up to $32,000 for the Sick and Family Leave Credit. Visit taxcreditnow.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers' offense was very productive last night in San Antonio. Kawhi Leonard and Norman Powell each dropped 27 points to help the Clippers beat the Spurs 128-116. Leonard played a season-high 29 minutes. Ivica Zubac had 21 points and 22 rebounds. The Clippers are at Charlotte Friday. The Lakers are back in action tonight. They're at Washington, a team with the worst record in the NBA. The Wizards are 6-40 and have lost 15 straight. The Lakers won't have Anthony Davis tonight. A good time for the Lakers to regroup and show some mental toughness on their 4-game road trip. USC's women's basketball team, ranked number 4 in the country, is playing their first home game in 18 days. USC is at the Galen Center tonight to host Minnesota. The Trojans have won 14 straight. Trojan star Juju Watkins remains the nation's number 3 scorer with 24.8 points per game. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attention. Have you racked up $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is notifying consumers about significant debt relief options currently being made available to help those with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of credit card debt for those who qualify. You don't need to declare bankruptcy or take out a consolidation loan, and you may only have to pay back a fraction of what you owe, even if you have bad credit. National Debt Relief has already reduced the credit card debt for more than 550,000 consumers, so don't wait. If you owe $10,000, $20,000, or even $100,000 in credit card debt, you can now take advantage of this financial debt relief as the cost of living continues to skyrocket. To check what debt reduction you may qualify for, call 800-237-8585. That's 800-237-8585. Again, that's 800-237-8585.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
Wow, you look amazing. What have you been doing?
I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic, Wegovy, and the other GLP-1 medications, right? Well, I found this great company called Zelfie. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and other GLP-1 medications that are 80 to 90% less expensive, all 100% online.
I can get GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% less and do it all online? No doctor's office or pharmacy?
Yes, Zelfie can provide semaglutide or tirzepatide, the active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s, but for 80 to 90% less and shipped directly to your door.
How do I get started with Zelfie?
Just send them a text.
Text BEST to 200-300 to get started today with Zelfie. Get the same active ingredients in Wegovy or Ozempic, but for 80 to 90% less and 100% online. Don't wait. Text BEST to 200-300 right now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text BEST to 200-300. That's BEST to 200-300. BEST to 200-300.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
And we are joined by the man who is currently spearheading this particular round. It's historically has been a conversation in California over the years whether or not we secede. He's worked as a liaison between the state of California government and the federal government for 10 years. And he says he's developed a personal understanding of the relationship between the two. He worked on goods movement efficiency studies, looking at international freight systems and how they operate, especially, he says, California's role in the world economy. And he is currently the driving force behind YesCalifornia.org. Marcus Ruiz Evans, welcome.
Welcome. We're with CalExit now.org. CalExitNow.org is where you can get the petition and find out all the information.
So you explain what it is your end game is. Because we know we'll get into what the actual initiative, should it get to the ballot, what it would actually do, and what it will take for it to even get to the ballot. But what's your end game? What's your vision if even beyond this initiative, what would California as an independent nation look like?
Well, I think we already somewhat have some of the answer. When I started about 12 years ago on this, and you said nation state, and California's the nation state, people would laugh at you. Then, of course, you recall COVID, where our governor said, we're not going to follow any federal orders. We're going to do our own thing when it comes to opening up over COVID, which is an emergency situation. We're going to ignore working with America. We're going to go on the international stage and act like a nation, deal directly with China. And then he said, we're a nation state. And that was Governor Gavin Newsom, and he was wildly celebrated for that. Now, if you say nation state, it's not laughed at. People recognize it. You can see that in policy journals. The World Economic Forum had a commission on what would look like if California was independent. It's sort of already recognized. We're the world's fifth largest economy. We've sort of had this status since, I think, early 1990s. We'd be more powerful and wealthier and be able to do more for our people while keeping taxes lower. That's largely what it would do. Oh, while also protecting ourselves and our rights.
Well, okay, but I mean, there are things that we would rely on the federal government for, i.e. an army. California does not have an army. All of the other, power, water, and other infrastructure, those resources are interconnected with the other 50 states. So how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a policy guide called the Golden Guide to Independence. It's on our website, CalExitNow.org. It's a 200-page long document that answers the top 22 questions. So, for example, military. California has its own separate military that's independent from the federal government. Most people don't know this. It's not the Cal State Guard. It's called the Cal Guard. It goes back to the early 1800s. The reason that we don't have a larger independent military is we just don't fund it. So if we redirected our National Guard funding to the Cal Guard funding, we could have a very large independent military here already. Secondly, when you look at the book Secession by, I think his name is Professor Buckley out of George Mason University, he pointed out that the American military is so large and exorbitant, right? It spends 19 times more than the next country. It's largely built on empire. You don't need that for national defense. A lot of people around the world see that. We pay a huge amount of that. We're the largest state contributing financially. You know what state has the largest amount of combat experienced vets, active service vets, and veterans in general? It's California.
Well, I
So
mean,
if
we
we
have
were
more
independent-
people. I mean, that's part of the reason, right?
Sure.
We just have more people.
Sure, but we're talking about what if we were an independent country, and I'm saying we'd have basically the third most powerful, most financed, and most combat experienced military in the world, almost instantaneously.
Even though, I mean, as you point out, California, whoever's been funding it, the United States military, their equipment, their bases all around the world, the incredibly insane investment that that we've made for years would certainly put any small, relatively smaller nation adjacent to the United States at a disadvantage, would it not?
True, but you also have to think, I mean, like, is America going to invade Canada, Mexico? It could go invade Germany and France.
Apparently we
There
may
is such a thing.
go invade Mexico, but that's another
I mean,
show for
Trump
another
talks.
day.
Yeah, it's another thing to see if they're actually going to get, 100,000 American troops to launch an invasion like 1850 style into Mexico versus saying another thing. There's a lot of countries that are smaller than America and have reasonable militaries, and they're not going to get invaded. Partly because we're based on an international trade system. You can't invade your trading partners and think the other trader partners want to do business with you. If nobody wants to trade with you, if finances seize up, the entire American economy seizes up. Even Trump understands that. So while you have a giant military, you can't go around crushing everybody, or you'll literally cut off the economic bloodline that it takes to keep your nation alive. It's a two-edged sword. So they can't exactly do it. We've always talked about having like a Canadian-style relationship. Why would America invade Canada? Secondly, we're talking about leaving legally. They don't like us. I just heard you talk about red state welfare. Absolutely. We give to 35 states, and they don't like us for who we are. If we're asking for a vote and we get it, why would they conquer us if they said, get the hell out in the first place?
Where we are now in this moment is the Secretary of State has approved your petition, if I'm not mistaken, to start collecting signatures to put a measure on the ballot, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So, and you have till July, I believe, to get like a little more than 500,000 signatures.
I don't know the date. It's about 5.5 months from about 4 days ago for about 600,000 signatures. But I would remind people that people are exceptionally livid right now. I've been doing this longer than anybody. I started the CalExit movement. I formed the first couple of groups. I was there in 2016. I saw more people, did more interviews than anybody. I'm back here. I can tell you it's different. In 2016, Californians were scared. The support for CalExit, 32% of California, or 15.5 million people, said they want immediate secession in 2016. Plus an additional 14.5 said they were open, which means 47.5% of Californians said they were willing to discuss secession in 2017. That was all out of fear. The reaction now is sheer rage. Last time it was, we're scared, we need to do something. Okay, I'm reluctant to do this. It's a matter of survival. Okay, I'll reluctantly do this. This time it's get the hell out of the way. I can't believe he did that. They are enraged. It's a massively different attitude, and I'm the most qualified person to say that. I think Trump has massively underestimated what he did by telling people when there's Californians who are dead and homeless and destitute and beside themselves, I don't know if I want to help out, guys, because I really don't like you. And then Speaker Johnson does the same thing. And then, like I've been asking everybody, tell me the Republican reaction to that. Show me where Republicans said, look, Trump, I backed you, but I am disgusted that when Americans are dead and homeless on the ground, that you would want to play politics with that and say, now I'm not sure I like you guys. It's not there. That's the point. You add that to the fact that LA Times said that half of the Republican Party views Californians as not American. That came out last year. This is what that means. You're seeing what that means now.
So you feel really confident that you can get these signatures in time, just given the attitude of people that you're encountering on the ground?
Look at the amount of media. We had no idea we were going to get this massive explosion in media. We filed this 2.5 months ago. It's exploded. I didn't know that was going to happen. That's the public reaction. That's not me. I don't have that kind of power. So if you look at the way this has exploded in conversation and like your this interview right here, I didn't know that was going to happen. I don't have that kind of control. I think you answered your own question.
And just to be clear here, there's been a lot of different conversations about California breaking away from the United States of America and being its own country. There has also been conversations about splitting up California, but this is not that.
Yeah, no, this is not that. Most Californians are against splitting California. That's the thing, is that CalExit, like I said, February 2017, Reuters Ipsos, Stanford University, 47.5% of Californians not opposed to discussing secession. Now let's take a look at splitting California up. Public Policy Institute of California did a survey. Both times Tim Draper proposed that. 73% wildly against it. So the numbers aren't even there. He has a third, like 33% of Californians for it. We had about just under half. It's not a popular proposal, and secession is actually more supported in California than Tim Draper's dumb idea to split California was ever on both attempts.
Talking with Marcus Ruiz Evans, we're looking at a real impulse and a movement now on the move to split California off into an independent nation. We'll continue this conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2024, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Your paycheck and bank accounts are at risk of being seized. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your options, and it's free. If you owe back taxes, have years of unfiled tax tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better? Business or personal? Call the experts at Republic Tax Relief while there's still time. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. The call is free. Call their hotline number now, 800-652-1714. That's 800-652-1714. Find out if you qualify today. Call 800-652-1714 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
And we are, and we're talking with Marcus Ruiz Evans. He wants California to become its own nation. CalExitNow.org if you want to find out more. So Newsweek had us an article saying that maybe Vladimir Putin is behind the efforts to have California and also Texas, because folks in Texas have repeatedly, probably more than California, talked about seceding.
Oh, yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah. Well, I think you answered it, right? Like, Texas people have been talking about secession going back to the 1800s. I don't think Putin made that happen. And also, here in California, it was 32% in 2016. 47.5 were open for that. We're talking about numbers of 20 to 25 million people here in California. Vladimir Putin made all those people think of this. That's just ridiculous. And if you look at the main article that all of this comes from, it's the BBC article, Russian trolls promoted CalExit. That's also in that Newsweek article. They admit it was no more than 20%. That means 80% of all the traffic was organic. You'll never hear them mention that. They'll talk about Russian trolls, and they don't even do that in that Newsweek thing. They don't mention the actual numbers of the article that they reference. I find that telling.
This is Ron Naring, who's a Republican strategist, who is is quoted in.
I met him before.
Yeah.
After I published my CalExit book.
But certainly, it might benefit Russia, right? If Texas or California seceded, because it would weaken the United States. All of our money and people and talent was no longer part of the USA.
Well, real quick, why did Ron Naring meet with me 2 years after I wrote my CalExit book and 1 year after I was known for being a secessionist in LA Daily News? That's a fact. So I sent that to the person who wrote that article, and I questioned that. Also, when Ron was there, he was speaking Russian? The guy's doing this for CYA. I won't explain what that means, but look at a little bit more to Ron. Also, his career is over. He kind of lost with Cruz, so he needs to do something right now. I said, question the source. I think your audience members know that. Question the source. Now, if you want to get back to the main question, Russia, China's going to come. Sure. They did that with Brexit. They did that with Scottish independence. They did that with Catalonian independence. At some point, you got to realize this is the boogeyman. Why is it reasonable for Spain to say Russia made Catalonia to be independent, and England said, well, Scotland wants to be independent because of Russia? Russia's behind everything. At some point, this just doesn't make logical sense. That country cannot be, the 13th largest economy and be behind all these independence movements successfully around the world. You have to recognize at some point there's organic interest. And maybe it benefits someone, but that has absolutely nothing to do with why those people are doing it. And it's kind of an insult to democracy and to all these freedom-loving people that they want a better life. Why is it okay to insult them?
There's an article in ABC that quotes a director of the California Constitution Center at UC Berkeley Law saying that it's unconstitutional for us to secede from California, and two, he calls it a big waste of money. What do you say to that?
You're probably talking about David A. Carrillo. So David A. Carrillo's at the UC Berkeley. Yeah. You didn't find the other article the next year where he backed down and admitted that we were right. So, yes, he wrote that. And then the next year, because we kept saying Texas versus white is a real case, consent to the state is in there. It was decided by Salmon Chase, who was personally appointed by Abraham Lincoln. It is the legal precedent, came after the Civil War. And 3 California attorneys general, including Kamala, You guys may have heard of Kamala Harris. She personally approved of our secession petition in 2015 that recognized that Texas versus White exists with consent of the states. That's incredible, right? How did he get that wrong? And why did he back down the second year after making that statement?
So in your opinion, all of these concerns are either surmountable or not even legitimate in the first place?
I think when people look into it, that's kind of obvious. So we've had many lawyers come up and say, secession's illegal. Tell us about Texas versus White. Texas what? Tell us about consent to the states. Consent what? Tell us about Erwin Chemerinsky, the top constitutional scholar in all of California, most cited legal jurist in all of news. He said a simple majority of Congress could be all that's required to make CalExit happen. None of these lawyers ever bring that up. That guy's the top lawyer. But they won't mention him, and they won't mention consent. They won't mention Texas versus White. Why are these people experts then? And why are they believable? If they can't be aware of the law, why should you be a reliable source for the law? That doesn't make sense.
So let's pivot. We just got a few more minutes here. Let's pivot to what would actually be accomplished. Let's just for the moment suppose that you get the 500,000+ signatures that you need by July in order to get this thing on the California ballot. Now, 55%, I believe, of voters would have to approve it. And this is if 50% of eligible voters actually show up.
Yes, ma'am.
To the polls. I don't know, what the likelihood of that is, but let's say it does happen. What does it actually do? What would it do?
Well, for example, we're a donor state, right? So we pay more in red state welfare claims. So we heard that earlier today. We lost $20 billion in 2019. $20 billion is more than it was estimated to permanently end all homelessness in the San Francisco Bay Area forever. There's a lot of African-American people in the Oakland area and in the Bay Area, the Tenderloin area. We could have permanently ended homelessness for everyone who's homeless in the Bay Area forever for what we lost in 1 year. In 5 years, we could have permanently ended homelessness for everyone in the LA area forever without raising taxes and without diverting funds from any other things. That's how much money we're losing, subsidizing 35 states who don't like us. They don't like the fact of we're the home of BLM, and we got a bunch of immigrants running around, and we have sanctuary cities, and we have the highest amount of LGBTQ people here. They don't like that, and yet we subsidize them. How does that make sense?
So what it actually does, I mean, if it passes, it doesn't immediately make us our own nation. What it does is allow a study to see the viability, or what would the study do?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's totally correct. You can't just say, I want us to secede, obviously. So what you'd have to do under international precedent is you have to have a domestic vote. Now, we're putting the question in front of California voters. Do you want to be part of America? Would you like to leave? In a non-legally binding manner. That's how we got it through the initiative process. You can't radically change the government. However, while it's not legally binding under domestic law, it's pivotal under international law. You have the government do an investigation into what it would be like to be independent, provide that to the public. You now have what's known as an educated electorate. If they then do this plebiscite poll vote of do you want to be independent, and you get over half, it has huge international standing. I would point out Brexit, Catalonia, Scotland, New Caledonia, the Greenland vote, etc. You immediately get raised up to nation-level status. We're talking about California representatives being asked to come to the UN to speak automatically. Then you send a representative to Congress to ask for permission to leave. Hence, Texas versus White, consent to the state, Erwin Chemerinsky, top constitutional scholar, simple majority lets us to go. The Republicans have more power than they've had in a century. Now, Republicans have trifecta governments that comes and goes. You got to go back 100 years to find out where you have the House, Senate, presidency, and Supreme Court. They have enough votes to vote us out on their own under the Chemerinsky interpretation. We just send somebody there, they'll let us out. Last year, LA Times poll from half of the Republican Party views Californians as not American. And then Donald Trump says when people are dead and homeless and destitute, I don't know that I really like you guys, and I'm not sure we're going to give you the aid. And then Johnson says that, and then there's absolutely no backlash from the Republican Party from Trump and Johnson treating other Americans in that way. That's disgusting. They already told us they don't like us. They're willing to negotiate when we have people dead on the ground. Half of them don't view us as fellow countrymen. Let's get the hell out. It's all lined up there.
Marcus Ruiz Evans, just about 30 seconds here. Tell people what to do if they want to support this drive, this initiative.
You got to go to CalExitNow.org, CalExitNow.org. Give us your email. We'll send you the petition package. You can print it out or get it at some events that we have, and you can start signing the petition, telling everybody, becoming educated on why we should secede and how it's the only way to save you and your family from a deteriorating America. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. It's CalExitNow.org. That petition is active and approved by the Secretary of State if you want to get involved. Perfect time to call me, 800-920-1580. We are unapologetically progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. More than 30 bodies have been pulled from the Potomac River after last night's collision between a passenger plane and a military helicopter near Washington, D.C. Officials preparations. More questioning of President Trump's nominees continues today. Kash Patel will face senators for the FBI